Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the main event. You're back again with.
And Aaron.
How you been, Aaron? It's been a good weekend for you.
Yeah, it's been all right. It was a good Halloween. What about yourself?
Yeah, it was all right. Obviously we couldn't do anything, so we bought an obscene amount of sweets. Anything with sugar in were bought, and we had a Saw marathon. So we watched like the first 5 Saw films, and then got really tired. And obviously they got a bit repetitive. I've seen them all before, but I thought, yeah, why not? Seems like a good little.
The first one's the best.
I think 5's my favourite. I do like number 1 though. Number 2 is my least favourite out of the 5 that we watched. Number 7 is the worst if I was to include all of them off the top of my head.
Fun fact, if you watch Saw 1 through to 7, it's 666 minutes.
Is it really?
Yeah, total run times.
But did you know
666? But then they added like the new ones, didn't they?
But do you know, fun fact, I actually mentioned this to someone on Twitter last week, that there's a mistranslation in the Bible. So 666 is not the number of the devil. 616 is the number of the devil.
Interesting.
It was a miscalculation. There's also some really freaky stuff. If anyone, I'm guessing it's on YouTube. YouTube's the QI episode where Stephen Fry talks about it. There's some really freaky stuff where people, because they are superstitious, have changed like a highway or a room number from 666. And it's just a coincidence that they picked 616 and then something's bad's happened in this situation. It's really freaky. If you believe in that sort of stuff. But yeah, loads of fun facts for our Halloween special. Let's hope that we don't have a horror show this week though, Aaron, because we are having a special focus on wildcards. So we both have both of our wildcards intact. I know a lot of people successfully limitless wildcarded last week. Well done to you guys. And I know that other people are going to be wildcarding standard this week so that they can make the most of the double up on fixtures. What I will say is, obviously, remember there are 3 weeks, I think, between fixtures in the Champions League. So anything can happen. Players can get injured. Players can get COVID. So I'm really happy that regardless of what decision we end up making, we're going to have a wild card anyway, just in case. Have you decided full on whether you're going to use yours yet or not?
No, I'm definitely 50-50 on it, going back and forth all the time, because I'm quite happy with my team, because I was kind of planning for my first team that I could field a good starting 11 when it came to these double ups. But like I remember saying in the last episode, that extra transfer going into the little break, especially because it's international break, lots of players caught COVID last time. So, and most of the Champions League players are international players. I don't think there's hardly any that aren't. So, yeah, back and forth constantly.
That's how I feel. So I think what we should do is we'll get cracking into these games. Usual format where we'll just go through, give our predictions. One thing I will say is obviously everyone now has more data. So I don't think we need to overanalyze things too much. But for each game, we'll try and say if there's a limitless or standard wildcard option for people who may not have some of the players. So starting with Group A, we've got Salzburg versus Bayern Munich. Salzburg won 5-0 at the weekend. They had a little bit of a rotation. Okafor got a hat-trick and Koita got a brace, for anyone that cares. Szoboszlai and Januzovic both got assists, but they were both subbed after 60 minutes. So it looks like Salzburg managed to successfully rotate and absolutely smash the opposition, let's be honest. Bayern Munich coming away 2-1 winners. Gnabry and Muller with a penalty goal. Lewandowski didn't feature. Kimmich got the assist for Gnabry's goal. It was a Gnabry, Muller, Sané playing in behind Choupo-Moting. That was the formation that went for in those forward areas. So I know a lot of people are interested, which leads me to believe Kingsley Coman will be safe to start this game. How are you feeling about the game, Aaron?
I think that there's a lot of options for Bayern Munich that if you get the rotation right, like they're pretty set premium options. I think one thing is that regardless whether it's a wild card, limitless, or normal transfer, you have to get Kimmich into your team. I didn't to start with, still don't. So I'm quite happy the fact that I'm kind of clinging to everybody who does, that I'm still up there. However, I think just stop being silly and get Kimmich in. And I think that's one of my main. He's a set in stone player if I do wild card in any format this week.
Yeah, I'm grateful that I've got him really consistent, 2 10-point performances. I think Lever will be safe for the for this Salzburg game. I think the game itself is going to be really open. It's two teams that like to attack and don't have too many cares about defending. With Salzburg, I think the standout player is Sobo, as I now like to call him, Andrew Slobotslan. He's obviously gotten back-to-back goals. He's got an assist at the weekend and then subbed off. He seems like a really, really, really good player that can take the game by the scruff of the neck when Salzburg aren't playing very well. I do obviously worry for them defensively in this game because they have struggled at times in these Champions League games, and Bayern Munich are going to dominate them. So Szoboszlai would be the only Salzburg player I'd be overly interested in getting if I was to limitless wildcard. It's 7 million, or even standard wildcard. I feel like because of the group that they're in, obviously he's proved that he can get goals against the other two teams. And as strong as Bayern are, anyone can score against them. Like I said, they even conceded another goal this weekend. So I've got no concerns with attacking players playing against Bayern at all.
Definitely. And with Salzburg as well, just with their kind of fearless mentality, yeah, I think that they could cause Bayern Munich troubles. So I think Kimmich is the only exception. I wouldn't try and get any other defenders in, and that's only because Kimmich is an out of position.
Agreed.
I think the only thing that I'm kind of worried about is Del Clasica is next weekend. Top of the table clash, Dortmund, Bayern Munich. So it's whether there are some players that are rested for that from both teams. Especially, I think more so on the Dortmund side, there'll probably be some earlier substitutions against Bruges if they get a good lead. But Bayern Munich are too strong, and I don't think there'll be too much of a weakened side if they do start messing around with their team. Something I found quite interesting for those who are looking for a cheaper way into the Bayern Munich midfield is Tolisso is looking quite solid, and also Goretzka as well. Tolisso started the last Champions League game as the centre attacking mid and then got brought back to the defensive midfielder. So that's I thought that was quite interesting, but I would only use them on a wild card, like a normal wild card, or if you're trying to upgrade another position and you're trying to downgrade like a Pulisic or a Felix or someone like that down to Goretzka. I think they're the only times I would go for that. I wouldn't consider them for limitless.
Yeah, I think for limitless, you want to be pushing for the most outstanding players in the team. I think if you're regular wildcard and Koeman's fine, both Bayern and Dortmund rotated this weekend. I think that's within mind both games. They're going to be playing, thankfully, just the two games, like one after another, because we do have the break next. So I think we shouldn't overthink this. Haaland, Lever, the big players, these are going to be playing both games absolutely fine because we know that they can play 2 games in 4 days or whatever it is. The issue comes is when you've got to play 3 and 7 or 4 and 10, which is why they've obviously all been given a rest. So I don't think we should worry too much about it. Your prediction for this game?
I think Bayern Munich will win 3-0.
Wow. I'm going to say Bayern Munich will win 3-1.
To be fair, Salzburg could easily get a goal. Yeah, I'm going to put my neck out on the limb and say that, just because I won't. If I don't wildcard, I won't be able to get Pavard out my team. So that's the only reason I'm saying that. It's kind of wishful. I think Salzburg will score, but that's my prediction.
On to the next game in this group, we've got Lokomotiv Moscow versus Atletico Madrid. Lokomotiv lost 2-1 at the weekend away. Miranchuk did score again, though. He's looking like a really, really good player. And I think there are teams in the Premier League that should be looking at him. Just the way that he plays, not just his output. He's genuinely a really good player by the looks of it. They were playing a half-strength team, so I can't expect a more formidable performance against Madrid, who won 3-1 at the weekend. It was a bit of an upsy-downsy performance for Felix. He's got 2 goals. One of them was a pen, but he also missed a pen. Carrera played up front with Felix, so Suarez was dropped. I don't know whether that was tactical or to give him a rest, because he's coming up to his mid-30s and he played in the Champions League, so it might just be a case of give him a rest. And it worked a treat. I don't think it was a surprise. Torreira got his first goal for Atletico Madrid as well. Well done to him. One thing to notice was Jimenez, centre-back. He started, so he's back. I don't know how much of a threat he currently is for Felipe's spot. It's usually Felipe or Jimenez that play that left centre-back role. So that'll be interesting. Lodi was dropped for Hermoso playing left back, which I think just means that Lodi will play midweek. It was probably just to rest. How do you see this one, Aaron?
I think Atletico Madrid will win this game 2-0. However, an Atletico Madrid clean sheet is hard to come by these days. They've not kept many this season. All Blacks not being the stellar goalkeeper choice that a lot of people would have brought him in. But playing Bayern Munich, I don't think a lot of people should have expected Atletico Madrid to be a solid defensive team. But against Lokomotiv, I think they can go back to that kind of mentality. I think they'll grab a few goals and then just sit back, get the job done, because Russia can be a hard place to go and win.
I think it'll be a really tough game for them. I really, really do. I think the issue that's going to be is Lokomotiv aren't an easy team to break down. I think they'll find it more difficult to create chances in this game than Bayern, where they created quite a few chances. I have got 2-1 to Atleti because I think João Felix is the difference. I think he's a man in hot form. I think he's starting to show his class. I think he's always showed that he's got class. He's just been pretty inconsistent with it. Usually for injuries as well. He's picked up a few. Every time he sort of gets a little run in the team, he picks up a little knock here or there. I think if he's not in the team, I could definitely see a draw or Lokomotiv nicking it. But with Felix there, he's going to be a handful for those defenders, and I think he can get on the score sheet. And he is definitely the one player in this game that I would be looking to bring in on any kind of wild card. Just for the wild card thing as well, for the Bayern team, I'd happily wild card in Lewandowski as well for Salzburg. He was in my plans. My plans were either Lewandowski or Ronaldo from Mbappe, which is why I'm really considering that limitless wild card so I can pick them both, see how they do, and pick up that third transfer for Game Week 4. But Lewandowski's looking really juicy for that game. I just wanted to bring that up because we hadn't mentioned really Bayern Munich players when we probably should on a limitless wildcard pod.
I think it's quite interesting that Lewandowski is still highly owned by a lot of people, 49%, so still, just under half. And I think he'll repay the faith for those who have stuck with him. I think a lot of people are dropping him. I know Nathan said in the last podcast to drop him. These are the type of games where Lewandowski proves his worth. He wasn't on the bench this past week. I haven't heard if that's injury related. I think it was just a rest. And I think he'll be back on the score sheet this game.
Absolutely. Group B, Real Madrid versus Inter Milan. We'll let you discuss the Inter game. We'll go with the home team first, though. Real won 4-1 at the weekend. Hazard doing Hazard things at long last. for Real Madrid. Fantastic goal. And the other players to look out for, Benzema with a couple of goals and an assist off the bench. And Valverde getting a goal and an assist. So, Benzema's got one goal and an assist, I think, but still off the bench. Valverde, I think we've mentioned before that Real Madrid players are likely to get one goal each in the group stage. So they'll rotate around. I think it's Valverde's turn. If you wanted a Real Madrid midfielder, Casemiro is hard to overlook because of his ball recoveries and obviously his goal and assist in the last round. It's not the most replicable for a holding midfielder, but I think Valverde, he's had a goal disallowed against Shakhtar. He's got his goal and assist this weekend. I think he's in really good form and he'll fancy himself against an out-of-sort Inter. Do you want to talk about Inter's 2-2 draw this weekend, Aaron?
Yeah, interestingly, Perisic played as up front with Martinez. Lukaku was not in the squad. Again, I haven't heard if that's injury related. Have you heard about it?
I've not heard. I saw that he was in the squad, but I imagine when you play Real Madrid, you might want to rest. Who did Inter play? Parma, didn't they?
Yeah, Parma at home. They had to really, really fight for this result. The whole of the midfield five were changed as substitutes. And I think it's quite hard because they brought on 3 defensive mids and a wing back as their subs. So like they took off Barella, they took off Eriksen, who you would say them two are more attacking, took off Hakimi, and then brought on Arturo Vidal, Nangolan, and Brozovic, and you wouldn't say that they were really attacking. So I don't know if it's just tinkering, but Lautaro Martinez didn't really do much in this game. And they had to really, really fight for the results. Even like they scored the equalizer in the last minute. So Parma did well. And Inter Milan, I think it's an aging squad. And I think all these games back to back, I think goes into Real Madrid's favour. They then have Atalanta next weekend. So again, at the top of the table kind of clash. They're trying to, especially for Inter Milan, they're trying to catch AC Milan, who are top. And Inter Milan, they're just kind of trying to stay competitive, really. They're currently 6th. And a lot of other teams have had better starts. So I think that just with the aging squad, it's just a consequence of it.
Yeah, I'm not holding out much hope for Inter. It's just going to be really interesting to see how Real Madrid cope with the threat of Lukaku. Hakimi back against his old club might have a point to prove, as Real Madrid chose Dani Carvajal and Odriozola over him at right back. The one thing I will say about this fixture is, I'd stay away from it from a wildcard perspective, but Limitless is a little bit more interesting because this is a Tuesday fixture, and as we know, Tuesdays offer punts. So if you think there's a bit of poetry waiting to happen for Hakimi against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, then you can stick them in. If it doesn't work, if you're on Limitless, then you know that you've got a plethora of options on Wednesday's fixtures. Just make sure you do have options. And that probably goes the same for Real Madrid. I think it's going to be an odd game. I've got 3-0 Real Madrid just because I think Inter aren't particularly great. 2 draws so far in the competition. Real Madrid seem to be playing in like 45-minute spells where they'll have a 45-minute nightmare and then 45 minutes of joy. I don't know whether Inter are good enough to capitalise on Real Madrid's 45 minutes of nightmare, and I certainly don't think they're good enough to handle 45 minutes of joy from them. So I put 3-0. I don't know why I put that. It's just a gut feeling.
I think Real Madrid will win, but I think it'll be close because both teams aren't at the top of their powers. I think Real Madrid kind of prioritizing the league. Zidane, despite all of his Champions League wins, said that winning the league was the best thing he did. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to do again, especially because they're currently second, kind of chasing. I mean, they're only 1 point behind with a game in hand, but again, it's one of them things where it's the squad is getting older, and all these back-to-back games, are they hindering the full team? But I think Real Madrid will win on the day because it's in Spain, and yeah, should be an interesting game.
You have a scoreline?
I said 2-1. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, 2-1. I think yours is far more reasonable than mine. I've just written it down. I don't know why. We've got Shakhtar versus Mönchengladbach. Shakhtar won 4-1 at the weekend. Tyson got a couple of goals. Alan Patrick got a penalty. Those are the players of note, that I noticed that I feel like I should mention. Tete was brought off the bench, so I feel like he's been geared up to play against Mönchengladbach. Mönchengladbach with a very impressive win this weekend against RB Leipzig, 1-0. Wolf got the goal and Herman got the assist. Thuram, Stindl, they were both subbed on. Hoffman played the full 90 minutes. So I don't know if his legs might be a bit tired for the Shakhtar game. These are two teams that like to score. It's odd, really, that Mönchengladbach have kept a clean sheet this weekend and Shakhtar kept a clean sheet against Inter. But against each other, I can't see it happening. I think in attack, they're both going to have too much for each other. And I'm actually really excited about this game. I think this game will be better than Real Madrid versus Inter.
Definitely, yeah, I think so as well. I think that Shakhtar are in a really strong position because of their earlier wins. Well, they're drawn with Inter Milan, but that's a good result away from home. And now they get the chance to... Oh, sorry, they were at home, sorry. They get the chance to kind of extend their lead, especially if Real Madrid, Inter Milan ends in a draw. Shakhtar, if they beat Mönchengladbach, are in a very strong position to even qualify top of the group, which is something that I didn't see coming. And I don't think a lot of people did, but it just shows that this team have very good players who, if they don't qualify, might get poached in January. So I do think that Shakhtar will win. I think 3-1.
Well, for once we differ, I've got 3-2 to Mönchengladbach. I think all the things you said apply to Mönchengladbach. They've got 2 draws against Real Madrid and Inter. They know that Shakhtar and Inter match that. Or let's say Mönchengladbach have the mentality that they should be competing with Real Madrid and Inter for the top spot, not Shakhtar. They've drawn with Real Madrid, the group favourites. They've drawn with Inter. They've also then got Real Madrid, who have dropped points to Shakhtar, and Inter that have dropped points to Shakhtar. I think Mönchengladbach are going to go in with the headspace that if we beat Shakhtar, that means we've bettered or equaled everyone's results in this group out of the first 3 games. And I think that's what they're going to try and do. We know that Shakhtar can attack. We know that they can't particularly defend. It was very much a game of 2 halves against Real Madrid. It was just a bore fest against Inter. And I can't see Mönchengladbach doing that, especially if they're going to play with Play and Thuram, who've got a great connection up top. But obviously, as they come out, I think Shakhtar will come out and play this game as well. I don't think they'll be as defensively solid against Inter because Mönchengladbach won't allow them to be. I think Mönchengladbach have got a bit more going forward than Inter outside of Lukaku, who's a one-man strike force really at the minute, with Martinez out of form. So I think Mönchengladbach will go in with supreme confidence, but also like a real will to win. I think the difference between in this game is I think Shakhtar will be scared of losing, and I think Mönchengladbach will be wanting to win. But that's just my opinion. Shakhtar might win 4-0.
Just found some interesting facts. So the last German side to win away in Ukraine was Bayern Munich in 1994 at Dynamo Kiev. Shakhtar's 4 home Champions League matches against German opponents have all ended in draws against a different team each time: Dortmund, Leverkusen, Bayern Munich, and Hoffenheim. However, Shakhtar are winless in 7 Champions League home matches. They've drawn 4 and lost 3. Their worst run without winning at home in the competition. So,
and they're not actually at home.
Yeah, that's true as well. So,
yeah, they're doing a Real Madrid where they're playing at their training complex or something like that.
So it'll be, if both of these teams could lose, the stats suggest that they both will. But who knows? It'll probably be a draw, and we'll both.
For the wild card, I'm not too sure. I think if you're going on a normal wild card, Tete at 5 million is a great option. Beyond that, I think if you're looking at limitless and you want a punt or a differential from Mönchengladbach, you want to be looking at Herman. I think he's around 7 in midfield. Thuram in play. Hoffman, although he played a full 90.
I was about to say Tete's prices went up. He's
5.2 now, is he?
Yeah.
There or thereabouts, isn't he? So yeah, they'd be the players I'd be looking at. Maybe Solomon if you're on limitless, maybe Solomon from Shakhtar, but I think there's probably better players in other games. Just trying to give you a bit of a watch list as such. So now on to Group C. First game we've got is Man City versus Olympiacos. Man City with a 1-0 win this weekend against Sheffield United. Kyle Walker with a goal. Classic Kyle Walker goal. Every time he scores, it seems to be the same kind of shot. And Kevin De Bruyne with the assist. Man City looked outrageously lively in that first half. Raheem Sterling really got under Sheffield United's skin. It was he's just a bother for the full 45 minutes. KDB controlled the game really well. They were unlucky not to have more goals, I think. Ramsdale in goal for Sheffield United was pulling off some wonder saves at one point. They come out for the second half and the game was just dead. I think by the end of it, Man City might even have been fortunate to have got a win with a couple of the chances that Sheffield United had, but they just never left second gear. So I think they'll all be fit and raring to go. Gundogan didn't play. Foden came on real late. Man City only had one attacking option on the bench, which was Phil Foden, which suggests to me that there aren't going to be too many rotation problems with this team because Pep doesn't have the players. None of them are fit. So if you've ever wanted to go on a Man City, which is really what I'm considering on my limitless, now is a good time to do it because Sterling will play, Kevin De Bruyne will play, Gundogan will play. I'm putting my neck on the line by saying those 3 people will play.
I can definitely see it because I think that, they've got Liverpool coming up next week. And so I think even though they'll play, I think they won't stay on the pitch probably past 60, 70 minutes. And I think that players like what you were saying there, Foden, I think Bernardo Silva will come on. And I think it's to give De Bruyne a little bit of a run out that getting to, not that needs to gel with the team. He's so good. But I think just making sure that they qualify early so that when it comes to December, they can use the Champions League to rotate when it's a heavy schedule. So qualify as quickly as they can and then let the rest of the squad have a run out afterwards. I think that's kind of the mentality that if they're not going for, I think that they should go for.
Yeah, it's hard to second guess on Pep, isn't it? That being said, Olympiacos, they won 2-0 at the weekend. Hassan got 2 goals. They rotated the midfield, so they should be fresh for Olympiacos. We discussed in the last 2 podcasts Olympiacos' away record in the Champions League. It's absolutely diabolical. They can be as fresh as they like. I still can't see them getting a result away to Man City. I think the return leg is going to be a different story entirely, especially, with Man City's in and out form. The good thing for Man City is they are going to have a little Champions League break. They just need to pray that players don't come back from international breaks injured. I think they're quite lucky in that
Mm-hmm.
of the players might not be playing internationally. The Phil Fordens, the Ferran Torreses, Ilkay Gundogan, they probably won't play for their countries. So I think Pep will be really happy with that. As far as the scoreline goes, I think it'll be 3-0 again. I think Man City will have another 3-0.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that, it'll be too strong. So I'll put the same score.
The second game is Porto versus Marseille. I mean, Marseille didn't play, so I've got nothing on them other than how they played in the last 2 games, which is dreadful. If you want to go for Marseille players, be our guest. It will never be a different piece of advice than Payet or Tovan. Hopefully, they're a bit fresher. That's the only benefit I can see for them. But you're a better man than me if you go for them. Or woman. Porto, however, lost 3-2 at the weekend. They were heavily rotated. Oliveira scored a pen. He obviously got one of the goals in the Champions League against Olympiacos, so he might be one to watch. I just think it's Luis again, Vieira. They're the players that you want to be looking at for this game. Even though Porto lost, like I say, they were heavily rotated in midfield and up front. Not necessarily in defence. They still had Chancellor Mbemba playing and a couple of others. Porto at home, I can't see anything but a win for Porto. The players that you would pick are the ones that, when you watch the Man City game, performed well. Just don't overthink this one. I'm going to go with 2-0 to Porto.
Exactly the same again. I think Porto will be too strong at home and they'll be looking to get the job done.
Are in Group D. Talk to me about Atalanta.
Atalanta have got a few injury concerns.
Just a few?
Yeah, just a few. So the only one of note is that Gosens, he didn't feature at all. It looks like he has a hamstring injury that he had in training. So Mojica is a player that will play instead of him as a wing back. However, he is a midfielder in the Champions League game. And they had a bunch of people come off injured. Hateboer, Romero, a couple of others who were just rested. So Gomez was taken off at half time. Definitely with the Champions League in mind. That's why I said it's kind of interesting seeing Gasperini prioritize the Champions League so much. And they're still doing well in the league. They won to Crotone. Muriel scored twice. And Zapata wasn't in the squad. I'm sure it's probably a running theme that they're all just getting rested. Oh, no, he was. He came on. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong bench.
He came on as a substitute, yeah.
Yeah. Ilicic also came on. But Zapata looks pretty good to start against Liverpool, against a Liverpool team that is definitely got a weakened defense, although they did look solid for most parts of the game this week. So this is gonna be a very interesting game. I think if I could watch a game, this is the one I would watch.
I'm annoyed by the fact that we're not seeing 2 full strength teams here because I want to see them go up against each other. So yeah, Hateboer and Romero both were forced off injured. Darun and Gosens are both major injury doubts. Ilicic, by Gasparini's words, looks the worst he's seen him. So that's not a very good sign that he's going to get any minutes at all against Liverpool. But I think that opens the door for Pasalic, who I think could be a real dark horse for this fixture. We said it the last few weeks now. Unfortunately, we didn't say it in the previews. Zapata is the best choice for Atalanta. I have Hateboer. I think did you say you've got both Hateboer and Gosens, or just Hateboer?
No, I wouldn't double up on Atalanta. I've just got Hateboer.
So we need to get rid of them one way or another.
Yeah. Because I was going to look at going to their centre-back because of all the ball recoveries that he's got. But now that he's injured, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, they might play. They came off injured. We don't know what their fitness is going to be like for this Liverpool game. But Liverpool won 2-1 at the weekend. Salah scored a pen. Some controversy on Twitter about whether it was or wasn't a pen. I'm the first to say that Salah likes to dive, but I don't see any complaints with this. He got kicked in the back of his leg. So I'm not entirely sure what any issue was with the penalty. Jota had a goal disallowed. That was rightfully so. Mane karate kicking Fabianski in the arm. But then Jota did...
Sorry, have you seen the new Muller memes that are coming out? We now call him
No.
Diego Jota. Diego Jota. Diego Jota.
Literally everything is just going to be like that. Jota's something that we should talk about. He ended up scoring eventually, Shaqiri with a marvellous pass. If that was any other player, there'd be a fanfare about that pass, but because it's the forgotten man, I don't think much was made of it. Phillips played at centre-back for Liverpool. So yeah, what we've got is a really interesting game. First and foremost, I think Salah and Mane are nailed, and I think they are going to tear Atalanta apart. Atalanta aren't great anyway defensively, but if they don't have their starting wing-backs pushing, at least like forcing Mane and Salah back, they're absolutely knackered. They've then missing arguably their best centre-back. But Firmino's been so out of sorts that will he play or will Jota play? Because I think Jota deserves his chance. I don't think Firmino has had a good game this season, not one. I know he scored last week, but it doesn't mean he's had a good game. I haven't seen him play well at all. And I think Jota has looked good in parts when he's came on. He's got a few goals. I think he deserves at least a chance. Maybe take some of the pressure off Firmino. But Liverpool's defence at the same time looked dreadful. I know they kept a clean sheet against Midtjylland, but was anyone expecting anything different? I don't think so when people on Limitless were doubling up on Trent and Robbo. If you're on Limitless this week, would you double up on Trent and Robbo? I think you have in mind. I think there's some really obvious picks for this game. If you're looking at Atalanta players, it's Pasalic for a punt and Zapata. Zapata should be nailed on for anyone's team. He's prioritising the Champions League and he's a nailed-on goal scorer. And at 9.5 million, however much he is now, I just can't see why you wouldn't have him in your team. If you can get to him, obviously. If you've got other fires to put out, then of course I can understand. But if you've got the opportunity to get him, especially for this fixture, he will bully those other players. Especially if, the young centre-back, 23, I think he is, for Liverpool. He played really well against West Ham. Thought he played better than Joe Gomez. But it's still a big stage, and you'd like to think a team of Atalanta's credentials going forward could capitalise. This will probably be one of those games where Gini Wijnaldum gets his obligatory goal in the Champions League. I just foresee it, just with Atalanta's problems. But I'm really disappointed that this isn't going to be Ilicic at his best. Probably Gomez at his best. No Van Dijk. There's no Fabinho. I just think I wanted them all there to just attack each other and go absolutely crazy, take too much caffeine and just have a great time. So I'm really disappointed. But I'm hoping that with all the injuries in place, we might see more mistakes. So, there could be a silver lining. Aaron, what's your scoreline for this?
I actually think this is more straightforward than the teams would be at full strength. My prediction is Liverpool 3, Atalanta 1.
Well, we've gone the same but different. I've gone Atalanta 2, Liverpool 4.
Yeah, I think it's not going to be as close as what we would have liked if the teams were at full strength.
Yeah, I think if they were at full strength, I could have seen Atalanta winning this. But with the injuries, and I know that obviously Liverpool have got the biggest one of all in Van Dijk, but Atalanta have just got so many of them and they play a certain way. So yeah, they need those. The next game in the group, Midtjylland versus Ajax. I'm sorry to any Midtjylland supporters, but you got beat 4-1 at the weekend. I'm not gonna waste any breath speaking about anything for this team. Let's go on to Ajax, who won 5-2. Klassen got a couple of goals. Tadic scored a pen. Promes got a pen. So I don't know what they're doing with pens. They played half a team. So after, I think it was about an hour, they replaced the the starting players for the Champions League with the other starting players for the Champions League. So whatever we saw in the last game is likely what you will see for Midtjylland. What can you see for this game, Aaron?
I was looking at this game with the potential limitless wildcard in mind, and then getting Onana as a goalkeeper. I think that if you are normal wildcarding, he's a player that you should be looking at getting in. Tagliafico, definitely. And I was looking at that double up, thinking that is very, very nice. So I think Ajax will win quite comfortably 4-0.
Yeah, I like the double up idea. My suggestion was going to be Nico Tagliafico. If you're on a limitless, then I could definitely see Tadic going in some people's teams. Not so much for a standard wildcard. I think for a standard wildcard, you'd probably want Traore because of his price. I think if he's got 2 fixtures against this lot, and then like we say, Atalanta in Liverpool aren't the best defensively. I appreciate Liverpool kept a clean sheet against Ajax, so it might seem crazy that I say that. But obviously, Liverpool have got more issues since then now. We don't know whether Fabinho will be back for that game. If he is, then obviously that really strengthens Liverpool's case. But other than that, I would say if standard wildcard, Traore, limitless, you want Tadic. Either way, bring in Tagliafico because he's got two easy fixtures right now, and that's kind of what you want. You can transfer him out in a few weeks. If you're going for limitless, then yeah, I like the Onana shout. If not, I wouldn't get him in because I don't think he's going to get many save points for these 2 games. And then I think you don't want to double up Ajax for games against Atalanta and Liverpool. What did you say your scoreline was for this game?
4-0, I believe. I may have just added a goal on.
Well, you stuck to it now, 4-0. That's what it is. Yeah. I'm going to go with... You know what? I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with 4-0 as well. I was debating 4 or 5, but I'll go 4. Flying through these, we've got Group E next. Chelsea v Rennes. Looking forward to this game. Chelsea won 3-0 at the weekend. Ziyech is officially a Chelsea player after his goal in the Champions League during the week. He's now got a goal and assist in this game against Burnley. Zuma with yet another goal from a set piece. Werner taking the pen while Jorginho wasn't on the pitch. Frank Lampard said that he's going to have a discussion about who the penalty taker is going forward because it's not just Jorginho and Werner, there are other penalty takers. And he just says before any game, they will be 100% sure who is taking the pens and in what order. What that means for Jorginho after he missed during the week, I'm not too sure. I'm just of the feeling that if your striker wants to take penalties and you don't have a world-class midfielder already on them, give them to your striker, just do it. I don't think Jorginho... I know that he's had a good record, Jorginho, for pens, but I also think a lot of keepers are wising up to his little hop, step, jump penalty kick. The one player that I noticed was unlucky against Burnley for Chelsea was Ben Chilwell. Nearly had a pen. He had an assist ruled out for Giroud being marginally offside. And against a Rennes team that scraped a 2-1 win against Brest, for Limitless, I can really say, it's not even just for Limitless, actually. I think in general, if you've got a normal wildcard or any transfer available, so obviously we've got Hatterboer. A Hatterboer to Chilwell looks really nice. Chilwell can get clean sheets against these twice in a row and then Krasnodar. And well, he kept a clean sheet against Sevilla as well. Sevilla aren't great going forward. And with the introduction of Mendy, Chelsea are looking really good defensively. My only concern for Chilwell is that he might get rotated if they do qualify. That's the only thing, whereas I think Mendy won't, so Mendy might be a good shout for a goalkeeper. Rennes goal scorers this week were De Silva and Aguerd, the 2 centre-backs. Now, that is something to make note of because Rennes clearly like set pieces, and Chelsea really don't. Chelsea are terrible at defending set pieces generally. Now, that might just be the old defence under Cesar Azpilicueta. Not Cesar Azpilicueta. You said that last week as well. Kepa Arrizabalaga, sorry. And maybe Mendy's making them all feel just a little bit calmer at the back, so I might not see that. But that is one thing that everyone should be aware of, is that Rennes are dangerous from set pieces and Chelsea are bad from set pieces. So a double up might not be the smartest choice. If you want to go for one, then it's not so bad. How are you feeling about the game?
I quite like the look of Ziyech in the team. I think that this is the quality that we all knew that he had. He has been so good for Ajax for years. And I think that now that he was subbed off early, Pulisic is injured, I think that Ziyech will have another good game. And maybe some of the others, new signings, will have a good game too, like Havertz and stuff like that. They kind of like facing these teams because they can gel a bit more and look more solid for the Premier League.
Yeah, Rennes neither look solid nor great offensively. So this is just another one of those situations, we've said it before. If you pick a Chelsea asset, you've got a good chance of getting lucky. It's just, which one do you pick, really? If I do go limitless, strongly considering Chilwell and a midfielder, whether that be Havertz or Ziyech. The reason I wouldn't go Werner is just because I can get one of those midfielders and I want three other strikers. Like I said earlier, you've got Haaland, Lewandowski, Ronaldo, all with great fixtures. Messi with great fixtures. Too many teams with good fixtures. Zapata up front, great fixture against Liverpool. So how do you squeeze everyone in? That's why I personally wouldn't go Werner. It's not to say that you wouldn't hit. If you've got Werner in your team, don't take him out at all. But if you're looking to get someone in, I probably wouldn't have him as one of my first choices when you could get a Ziyech or something like that. What's your score for this game?
3-0 Chelsea.
Exactly the same. I've won 3-0 too. Second game of this group, Sevilla versus Krasnodar. Sevilla lost 2-1 versus Bilbao at the weekend, and they played a strong team. En-Nesyri got the goal with a Campos assist. I think they might have scored too early. I think they scored within 6 minutes or something like that. Definitely within 10. And we know that can sometimes play a big part in team mentality when you go 1-0 up too early. And Bilbao aren't a bad team. However, if they wanted anything, it was this. Krasnodar got beat 2-0. Krasnodar have not really shown much. Obviously, they've had that worldie from Christian Ramirez. But beyond that, again, don't overthink it. We've currently got two Sevilla players defensively in our team, in Koundé and Bonu. I don't see any reason why I change them unless I'm on a limitless. If I'm on a regular wildcard, I'd be bringing them in. What do you think of this game and its assets?
The Sevilla defense look like really, really good options, especially because they're so cheap. If you didn't have Koundé in your team because you were worried about COVID, it's a good time to bring him in as a budget option to save some budget. And the goalkeeper, you had him for the whole tournament so far, 5 million. He's another cheaper goalkeeper who, 2 clean sheets so far in the competition. Can't complain about that. And with their midfielders and strikers going forward, I feel like because they are such a fluid team, especially last year, it's hard to be able to pinpoint which ones are going to perform, in my opinion. So I'm going to focus more on the defense. And I think they'll keep another clean sheet and win 2-0.
We're copying each other for this group. I've got 2-0 as well. Totally agree. I think Luke de Jong will probably be the one for this game. Personally, I don't know why, just a bit of a good feeling. I think he's due a goal as well. Sevilla quite wasteful against Rennes. I can just see a very similar game to Rennes versus Krasnodar. Sevilla at home as well. So you've got to put them as favourites for that reason alone. I'm happy with my two defensive choices. There's not going to be much that could sway me away from that. Group F, one of the tasty games again, Bruges versus Dortmund. Bruges drawing 2-2 at the weekend. Some names we're going to recognise here. Vormer and Lang with goals. Vanek and Skywalker with an assist. They had a fairly strong but not full strength team. So Diatta was out. Bonaventure was out. De Ketelaere, the hero, was out. So I think a couple of them came on as substitutes, but they didn't play the full game. We know what we're getting with Bruges. We know exactly what we're getting. A team that likes to attack, on fantastic defending, and make for really, really entertaining games. I think they are becoming really quickly one of my favourite teams in the competition. Not because I think they're going to do anything spectacular, but I just like the games that they're involved in general. Dortmund won 2-0. We've already mentioned Haaland didn't play. Rice played up front, got an assist, as well as your boy, eventually Meunier with an assist. The crazy thing was Hummels got both goals. So I don't know what to make of that. But could he be an option for Bruges? I don't know. He's got a few goals in his last... I think he's got 3 goals in his last 4 games or something, Matt Hummels. So I just don't know what to make of it. They played a back 4 at the weekend again. So that could be the way that they're moving forward, especially again with Emre Can. I think he served his 2-match ban now, so he could be back, injuries permitted. So I don't know whether they'll go back to that 3 at defence and play with the wing-backs against Bruges. I just don't know. Paslak played left-back instead of Guerrero this weekend, so I think Guerrero's fit to start. But Guerrero's on set pieces normally, so that might be a thing, especially if Hummels is a danger in the box. Their defenders have been scoring though for Dortmund, so I wouldn't have a problem going for a Dortmund defender at all on a limitless wildcard. How do you see this one going?
Hummels is definitely a good option, I think. Well, he has the most amount of points out of any of the other Dortmund defenders. He got 11 points last game, and he has over 10 ball recoveries in each game so far. So against Bruges, who might try and... Well, the only way that they can win this really is not to sit back. They've got to try and bring the game to the Dortmund defense, which just plays into Hummels' hands. Hummels is 5 million and seems like a good option. But it's just whether you would want... Well, I'm saying, would you want him or Meunier? I mean, at least Hummels has more attacking returns this season. So Hummels seems like the better option for 5 million if you can't afford Guerrero and you are wanting a piece of that Dortmund defense. I think in terms of the rest of the team, Dortmund are so good at attacking. Haaland seems like this seems like another game to start him. I wouldn't try getting rid of him for Zapata or anyone, although it is interesting when you try and weigh up where the strikers will finish if you had to rank them. But I think Haaland will be good. It's just whether they rest anybody halfway through the game because they're playing Bayern Munich on the weekend. And that's the only thing I'm nervous about with this game. So I'm not going to pile on Dortmund, but I'm not going to rush to get rid of any of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what do you think the score's going to be?
I think Dortmund will win 2-1.
I've got 3-1. I think the one player that we've missed off this is Jadon Sancho. I don't see any reason why, if you're on Limitless, you wouldn't want him in midfield. He's just such a great player, and on pens if Rice isn't on the field. So I'd strongly consider Jadon Sancho as a midfielder if you're on a Limitless wildcard or any other wildcard. He's now playing, so there's absolutely no reason not to get him in. Having a double up with him and Haaland is a risk because you're going to need at least Dortmund to score twice, really, to make it worth it, because I can't see him getting many ball recovery points or anything like that. So assists are a lot less useful in this game from attacking players, because you know that a player like Barrios at 4.5 million can get that in ball recoveries every game. So it's just, Limitless is a bit different. But yeah, I've won 3-1 to Dortmund. I can see like Vanaken or someone scoring for Bruges. The second game of this group, we've got Zenit v Lazio. Zenit at home. They won 2-0, but they rotated a lot of players. Yerikin, Mostovoy, both on the score sheet. I'm still not overly convinced. Do you want to talk about Lazio's 4-3 win?
Yeah, with Lazio, I mean, most of their team, I mean, they surprised us last game that there was that COVID scare, but a lot of their team came back either starting or on the bench. Milinkovic-Savic, who I was talking about in the previews, scored. Andres Pereira, who I don't know if he's on loan from Manchester United, but he is an ex-Manchester United player. And however, they were able to welcome back Ciro Immobile, which I'm sure they're very happy about. Their star player, their captain. And I think it just highlights kind of Lazio's thing that they scored 2 very, very late goals. Torino are a hard team to break down when they're at their best. And it's kind of one of them things where if we think about with Lazio, if there wasn't as much added time for whatever happened in the game, because I didn't watch the full game, so I don't know why there's 10 minutes of added time. If that didn't happen, they've lost 3-2, and that's a typical Lazio thing to do. But fair play to them. They seem to be a lot better this year in terms of mentality. And in terms of Champions League against Zenit, it's quite hard because Zenit are at home. It's more traveling for Lazio to do, because that's 3 away games on the bounce. They then have Juventus next week. I think that Immobile will start because it's the earlier game, but I think they'll have more eyes on Juventus than Zenit. And again, just go for them people that I was suggesting before. Correa looks quite good in the Champions League. He's gotten 2 returns despite me criticizing Cameron's choice for having him in. But
yeah, Cameron's always going to have one good choice.
But Luis Alberto, he wasn't in this game, which is quite interesting. I think he was just rested though. But Milinkovic-Savic and Immobile, it's good to have them back.
You got a prediction for the game?
I'm going to go with draw. I'm going to go 1-1 draw. Barrios with a 40-yard screamer.
Overhead kick.
Yeah, why not? Just add 40
more. 40-yard scorpion kick. That's what he's going to go for. Off the crossbar and in.
Love to see it.
But then it'll get ruled out by VAR because someone will be offside, interfering in the goalkeeper's vision. You've heard it here first, guys. I'll go with 2-1 Lazio.
Solid.
I don't really know much about this game, I'll be honest. It's a hard one. Do we know much about the Lazio players that are back? Obviously, the 9 of them missing for COVID. Do you have an update on those?
Not really, because whenever you try and find news on... whenever you try and find news like on Google and stuff, when you click on the team, you get all sorts. So like the Sun said that the whole squad were isolated and that it was in danger of
being know that the Sun are always accurate.
Yeah. However, then the next one says that so the next one will say that a full strength team is ready to be back after it was just a scare and no confirmed cases. So you don't know what to believe. I think it's hard because it's all like English or American like sports things, and I mean, I wish I could translate, but that's not going to happen now. I don't know Italian, unfortunately, except from Buongiorno.
Bene.
So
grazie mille.
Requiescat in pace.
Prego.
So to answer your question in short, because that was kind of waffled, no, I don't know what's going on with the team because nothing is clear.
Everything is sacred. Moving on to Group G. Barcelona versus Dynamo Kiev. Barcelona drawing 1-1 against 10 men at the weekend. Griezmann with a goal, Fati with an assist. Messi played the full 90. They played the strongest team, Barcelona. So just more headaches from Barcelona. Ronald Koeman. Why? Why Barcelona? Just be one or the other. Be dreadful or be good. Don't tease us. I can't see anything other than Messi, Fati, and Coutinho. I know they've got some good players. I know Pedri's a good player. If you want to actually, I tell you what, I'm going to take that all back. Alaba, I think, is a really strong shout. This is like one of the first games this season that he hasn't got an attack and return. And I do think against Dynamo Kiev, Barcelona should be able to keep a clean sheet. They did it against Juve. They're at home this game. So if you're on a limitless, because Alaba's a lot, Jordi Alba. It's a nightmare. So I'd say Jordi Alba could be a really good punt going forward and to keep a clean sheet. If you're on a standard wildcard who's looking to bring him in, he's a lot of coin for someone that you'd be unsure of when you know that you've got guaranteed Joshua Kimmich knocking around at the same price. So it's entirely obviously up to the individual, but they're the 4 players I'd be looking at. I'm not concerned with Serginho Dest versus Sergio Roberto. That's a headache waiting to happen. We're still unsure about the goalkeeper. Piqué was back, but I think Piqué is long past it now. Not in a rude, disrespectful way. He's been an absolutely fantastic player over the years, but it comes to an end for everyone, and I think it's coming to an end for him. So Barcelona is completely out of sorts at the minute. Dynamo 1-2-1. However, Sidorchuk, their captain, will be suspended for this game, and I think that could be massive for Dynamo Kiev, and that really swings it in Barcelona's favour. Home game, captain suspended. They should have enough to get over the line. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think that Messi, he's had a price rise, so he's 12.1. It's going to be quite hard to get him in. I think that makes him the most expensive player in the game. And against Dynamo Kiev twice, you would favour Messi. It's just with this Barcelona still gelling under Koeman's kind of regime and training, I just don't trust it enough to be able to spend that much budget. So unless you had a limitless, I wouldn't look to bring Messi in personally. I think there's better options. Especially if you have to sacrifice that much of your budget for him. I like what you were saying about Alba. He's a good player. Ansu Fati is going to be interesting because obviously he played on the weekend and he was rested last in the game against Juventus. So Ousmane Dembele has played both Champions League games, got an attack and return in both. But I just don't trust Barcelona enough to, unless I was playing a limitless, to sacrifice that much budget for a team that I don't know how they're going to perform match to match. But I do think they'll win. I just, from a fantasy point of view, I just don't trust them enough.
What's your scoreline?
I predict that it's going to go Barcelona 3, Dynamo Kiev 1.
I've got Barcelona 2, Dynamo Kiev 0. Wanted to keep that suspense there, that Kiev scoreline. It was a big one, that big fat donut for them. So yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. The other game in this group looks a lot better for fantasy assets. We've got Ferencváros versus Juventus. The Hungarians drew 1-1 at the weekend. Somalia with the goal. Not really much to say. We've seen them. They were like pretty fortuitous against Dynamo Kiev in the last game to get the draw. Dynamo Kiev obviously down to 10 men by the time that second goes in. Juventus have got Ronaldo back, who I'm going to let you talk about, obviously. So this is one of the easiest fixtures, which means that Ferencváros will, of course, win 2-0. But let's talk about Juventus.
It was a good performance, but Spezia aren't really... they've just got promoted, so they're not going to be a huge threat. Although Alvaro Morata scored quite early on, but VAR had to check it because it was originally ruled as offside. I just would have felt just the cruel irony after scoring a hat-trick of disallowed goals to then score again for it to be disallowed. I would have just gave up if I was Morata. But
ridiculous.
But he is a good option for this week. Ronaldo came on. He's back. The return of the king. 56th minute. So Dybala made way. I don't know whether I don't know if Pirlo will continue with Dybala, but I think Ronaldo has to play. Morata got the assist for Ronaldo's first goal, and then Rabiot scored. He's an interesting player. He's very sporadic, and he kind of follows the Juventus philosophy of getting a free transfer. But I don't know. I'm not a fan of Rabiot personally. And then Ronaldo's back on penalties. Pirlo looked happy, and Morata looks like a good option as well. If I was to go limitless, Ronaldo has to be there for me personally. I think that's the same with you as well. 0 points. He's only owned by 8%, so it's crazy that Ronaldo would be seen as a differential, although that will probably increase massively before the game. I think people kind of moving sideways from Lewandowski to Ronaldo might happen because Lewandowski only has 4 points. But I think the biggest move will be Neymar to Ronaldo, especially if people can free up that last 0.5 for that move. But Limitless has to be in there. And I don't think you would double up on the Juventus attack, because Juventus historically are not a team that are going to just absolutely punish you and just be relentless. Ronaldo will, but Juventus aren't. But if you can't afford Ronaldo, I would look at getting Morata in, and I never thought I would say them words, but he seems to be he's in good form. So
he is. He's found his home. Obviously, a goal and assist at the weekend. He was so unlucky against Barcelona, especially the first one. I still, just for Morata. The second two obviously were offsides, but the first one, so harsh for that handball. One way or another, Ronaldo's coming to my team. That, whether it's limitless, regular, or just standard transfer. If I do just use standard transfers, Hatterbo has to come out because he's injured. But it'll be Mbappe to Ronaldo, 100%. That is a transfer that I'm making. Just against a Hungarian team, I can see Ronaldo. I'm sure like the Ferenc for Frank Varos comes for Ferenc Puskas.
All right.
So
cool.
when you've got the two Real Madrid legends, I can just see Ronaldo going, nah, so, like, less of this. It's just smashing in six by himself in Hungary. These are the sort of teams that he just mops up against, like when he plays for Portugal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Just goes away somewhere in Europe, has a couple of goals. Thank you very much. It's made for him, this game. He had a lovely little warm-up at the weekend. He's not tired. He's got no fitness issues. He's raring to go. And Messi's a little bit ahead of him, obviously, in the goal-scoring stake, but only just a touch. And I think I can see Ronaldo genuinely getting a hat-trick in this game and just being, open-armed and what? I am the GOAT to Messi, essentially. Like, laying down the gauntlet. I hope he does, and I hope Messi scores. Like, I want this rivalry back, even though they're 35 and 33 or however old they are now. I just want it back. We've had it for so long, and I don't want to see it go. What do you think the score will be, Aaron?
I think Juventus will win comfortably 3-0.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-0. I'm going to go 3-0. All goals to Ronaldo.
Well, he's got
maybe Morata. Yeah, I think you've got a. I think you've got a really good shout in Morata there. To be fair, like I say, after Gameweek 1, the world number 1 had him in. You'll be fuming if you didn't take him out for Barcelona after all that. It's just a case of, hopefully there's no more COVID monster creeping around, scaring people at Halloween. It's not very nice. And that's the thing. That's one reason why I haven't pressed that button yet. A lot of people pressed it early last week and it worked for some. It didn't work for others. I know some people have pressed it early this week. The issue that I've got is that what happens if Ronaldo and everyone else tests positive on Tuesday? Well, fair enough, Ronaldo's playing on a Wednesday, but all my Tuesday players, things can happen. And I don't want to be wasting a limitless on £8 million players. which is why I want to leave it until I've got as much information as possible. Plan my transfers. I'm going to plan my limitless, but I'm not actually physically pressing that button until I can make the clearest possible decision. The good thing is Juventus are playing on a Wednesday. So because Ronaldo is, for me, my outstanding captaincy choice, I get to pick a differential on the Tuesday that I think could do well, that maybe other people don't have. And then obviously I can move to Ronaldo if that doesn't work out and keep my fingers and toes crossed. We've got Group H. The last group, we're nearly there. Leipzig versus PSG. So I've already mentioned Leipzig lost at the weekend to Mönchengladbach. They played a strong team, but it was rotated. Forsberg, Nkuku, Konate, Hadara, Hwang were all benched. Some of them came on, but the likes of Sabitzer got more minutes. Poulsen started, Upamecano. They played 4 at the back, which again is different to their strongest team. They're sort of 3 at the back team. PSG won 3-0 against Nantes. Played a 4-3-3, and their front 3 were Sarabia and Mbappe either side of Moise Kean. Sarabia and Mbappe both scored. Mbappe scored the pen. So it looks like he's on pens while Neymar's not there, which increases his value. And he got an assist as well. Herrera got the other goal for PSG. So pretty routine win for them in the end. A couple of routine wins in a row. What are you thinking about that one, Aaron?
This one's, I think, really tough to call, but I think that because Paris Saint-Germain will have better quality up front with Mbappe, I think that they'll win on the day just because I think Leipzig are in worse form. The Champions League is very much a kind of form game where you're looking to see who is in the best form to make their predictions. And Leipzig, they're not. I don't think they're definitely not at the height that they were last season. They are still doing well. I'm not saying that they're not, but the last 2 games they've lost without scoring a goal, and I think Paris Saint-Germain, who are pretty solid defensively when they're at the best. Marquinhos was rested, came on as a sub. I think Paris Saint-Germain will win 2-1. And I think it'll just come down to the individual brilliance of Mbappe. However, if Leipzig do win, which I would love to see, I can see Tuchel getting sacked.
That's interesting. We've said on this podcast before, we don't particularly rate him as a manager. I think he's probably a good coach, like in and around the training ground and things like that. It seems quite intense, but he tactically gets it wrong. I don't think he's got great man management. But you're right, Leipzig are in poor form. I think Leipzig, they've lost Klosterman and they're struggling to replace him. And it screams to me a bit of a case of the Sheffield Uniteds where they've lost O'Connell. They play a very specific, distinct style of football. And now that he's gone, they cannot find a replacement that can do the same job as effectively. And through that, it spreads across the entire team. And we've seen how poor Sheffield United have been in the league. I think that's happening to Leipzig as well, where they just cannot get the defence right at all. And Upamecano is a great player, but you can't do it all on his own. And there's a player that we had last season in Lema, and he was unbelievable for them. Not in terms of, he's going to get you 20 goals a season or anything like that, but he was such a workhorse, and he was someone that would defend really well, but he'd be one of the furthest players up the field. And they really miss him. He's injured. Sabitzer's just came back from injury and can't quite get into games. I think he's having to do more work because there are other better players around him that aren't there. So I think Leipzig are in some serious bother. And I know it's easy to say after Man United are now top and smash these 5-0, but these are a real Europa League team right now until they get their best starting 11 back. If they get Klosterman and Lema back, then they're a completely different outfit. So for that, I'm going for PSG routine once more with a 2-0.
Solid.
As far as getting people in, I wouldn't get anyone on PSG at all. If you've got them, keep them. And if you don't get them. The only one that I'd get rid of, obviously, is Neymar because he's injured and not that great. Like, obviously, he's a wonderfully skillful footballer. But as far as a Champions League asset over the last year, really, he's been incredibly disappointing. The last game, with I think the least to talk about, Istanbul versus Manchester United. Istanbul with a 2-1 win at the weekend. Man United have just lost 1-0 to Arsenal. You got anything, Aaron? You got anything on this one at all?
I think Istanbul will be too strong for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's team. I think it's going to be a pretty routine win. No, I'm joking. Rashford is going to be a solid pick. Fernandes is going to be a solid pick, but I do think Van der Beek will start. Martial is actually a player that I was looking at because he's been suspended in the league. 9.5 for those who can't afford Zapata because of his price rise. Martial, back-to-back games against Istanbul, looks pretty solid. And I think Man United will be I think this will be a pretty easy win. Another 4 million defender, Tuanzebe, I think he'll also play again. Seems to be their Champions League defender. For 4 million, I think this will be back-to-back clean sheets, to be fair. I would like to see Dean Henderson get a run out, but that's just me personally. I think Man United will be too strong. I think this will be 4 or 5-0, but I'm going to stick with 4-0.
I think obviously Pogba came in at the side against Arsenal again today, and it'll be interesting to see how Ollie plays against Istanbul, because I don't think he's going to need McTominay and Fred to sit there. That being said, underestimate them at your peril, because they got at PSG and had a few long-range shots. And, you know, if one of them goes on target, because a lot of them are off target, Man United could find themselves in a bit of trouble. It's just going to be interesting to see what team he plays. I like your Martial shout. The only issue is he's a forward, I think, on this game. So, and rightfully so, because he's a forward. Again, are there 3 better options than Anthony Martial when you could have Rashford in midfield or Bruno Fernandes in midfield? That's the question that you would ask. If you're a Manchester United fan and you're on a wild card of any kind, bring in 2 Manchester, if not 3 Manchester United players. It's your team, and you've now got the 2 easiest fixtures. Go with it. I do think you're right. I think Donny van de Beek will play. As far as a scoreline goes, I don't think it'll be as comprehensive. I think it's going to be 3-0 because Man United are really dangerous on the counter. You know what? I was about to say some absolute nonsense. I was going to say I don't think Istanbul would be so open. They were very open against PSG. I'm still going to go with 3-0, but I think that's because Ollie will probably rotate once the game's won.
Like what I said last week, that Paris Saint-Germain should have done better. 2-0 against them isn't good enough, in my opinion, especially if they do manage to claw back the points. It could come down to goal difference between the 3 teams, and Paris Saint-Germain might finish second and end up getting a really hard draw. And so they could go from finalists to getting knocked out at the round of 16. Manchester United would absolutely love topping this group. I would think that would be, I mean, who wouldn't? What a silly comment. But I think it would be the biggest surprise if they topped the group, to be fair. And
100%.
I think it would be just enough for Ollie to keep his job again. Because I forgot who said it, but there's only 2 teams that you can't beat. That's Liverpool at Anfield when they need to come back and win, except from Atletico Madrid. and Manchester United when Ollie's about to be sacked. You can't beat them.
You kind of do it. I think the issue with Ollie is, and it's what makes it so bizarre when you hear pundits like Rio Ferdinand saying, "Oh, get him to sign the contract now again," banging that war drum. And I feel like I am qualified to say this because this isn't just in football. This is life. This is every job. This is you, Aaron. This is me. This is everyone listening. The thing that makes a person successful at whatever level is consistency, but especially from football. And that's not my opinion. That is when you sit and you hear Roy Keane talk, Gary Neville talk, Rio Ferdinand talk. Serial winners sit down and they say the most important thing that you need to win anything is consistency. What is consistent with Manchester United under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is they'll win 3 or 4 games in the bounce, then they'll have a dreadful time of it. Ole might get sacked. He'll pull a win out the bag. That's amazing. And people will think, oh yeah, you see, he can do it. Give it more time. It will be like that forevermore. And you can say back him, but I think people need to get a glimpse of reality to see how much money that Manchester United team costs. I'm not being funny, but they've spent 40 million euros on a player that cannot start a game because the other players cost 90 million and 70 million and 65 million. Like, I'm not agreeing with Man United's board. I think they're horrible, horrible individuals, the Glazers, and Ed Woodward's completely incompetent. But no one can say cash hasn't been injected into the team. Not as much as what it should. I totally sympathise with Manchester United supporters because we have it a little bit the same with Ashley, where the amount of money that goes into the club isn't what's reinvested. The owners take a sizable amount of that money for their own pockets, which is not the way a football team should be run. So you'll not see me defending any of the owners aboard for Manchester United. This idea that money hasn't been spent is absolutely ridiculous. They have the world's most expensive defender on top of all those midfielders.
No, definitely. I'm excited for the game week. Make sure everybody sticks to Twitter. Follow us at Twitter at UCL Fantasy Pod. I'm probably going to use my limitless. Dan, you said you're probably going to use yours or Wildcard. So just check for the teams on Twitter and hope everyone has a good game week.
If we make a decision, we'll post it on Twitter. I might post some drafts on Twitter as well. If you want to get a draft over to me, Aaron, I can obviously post that too, but I won't be pressing the button until later on. I know that I'm not using my standard wildcard because of COVID. I want that. There's too many other ways that I want to use that wildcard in my mind, and I feel like we're going to need it. So limitless is absolutely fine because I'm allowed, just to get in my brain, because we're allowed the 3 transfers after using the limitless. I'm happy to use it now when I know the form of the teams. In 3-4 weeks, the teams might completely change form, then come into a Champions League game, and it's kind of like the whole thing starts again, where, well, is that just league form? Is this whatever form? We're going to know who's fit now in the moment, whereas we don't know who's going to be fit in 4 weeks. We just don't know if there's going to be any big injuries. So why would I try and use it then? And there are some teams that are, like, for example, Liverpool now look more appealing because Atalanta are so weak, but that might not be the case in 3 or 4 weeks. So that is why I want to use it now. And I've got 3 transfers to fix anything horrendous. Like, I don't have to take Hatterboer out if I limitless because his injury probably isn't a 3 or 4 week injury. It's probably a knock. So there are players that are currently injured that will likely come in after 3 or 4 weeks. So that's my thinking. But what everyone's got to do is try not to listen to everyone else. Did you have a game plan? Continue to follow it and look at your team and try and plot from there. Like I say, my team is in a completely different situation to your team, Aaron, to other people's on Twitter. So it's not just a case of, oh, I like that idea, I'll go with it. How is your team looking? If you've got 3 or 4 injuries, wildcard, if you look at your team now and think, actually, I've got players ready for these next fixtures. 2 transfers is enough. Don't waste a wildcard just because you can. But thanks so much for coming on, Aaron. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone that listened. As ever, the support's been overwhelming, to be honest. We didn't expect this. We started this just about a year ago now, nearly about 10 months ago, Aaron. I think out of those 10 months, I think it took us 9 to get going, really. So thanks so much for everyone that's jumped on. Thanks to our 13 listeners who have been with us since the very, very beginning. It's unbelievably appreciated. If you are one of them, by the way, drop us a tweet. It'd be lovely. But other than that, we hope everyone has green arrows, except for people in the same league as me. Have a good night. Take care. Bye.